Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the X12Cast. My name is Jack. I'm your host here today on the Woolly X12 channel. That's my channel. That's me. Pleasure to meet you all as well. And today's X12Cast is taking on a different guise to what it normally does. We're not talking one topic. We've not got some videos going on in the background. Today we are covering a variety of different topics with a new little graphic in the background for you all to enjoy. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy what I'm bringing you today. We've got a variety of news that we are talking about, and we are going to get straight into it. The first thing is today there is a meeting between Premier League teams and the executives and such. I believe that they are looking for a cut-off date. I think it's probably going to be around the 30th of June. They want a definitive league has to be decided by this date, regardless of what happens, so that teams can start to prepare for next season and beyond. It's not just resolving this season that's important, it's looking at next season. We've got transfers, we've got players' contracts expiring, players' contracts who need renewing, coaches' contracts that need renewing, and coaches' contracts that will expire. Some teams may be looking to relieve their managers from their duties, depending on performance. Obviously, it's hard to make a call if, say, your team may get relegated, may not. We still don't know what's happening regarding relegations. Talking of relegations and promotions, over in Scotland, leagues have been decided. They've decided the Championship, League One and League Two. Steven Gerrard's been out talking about it. He's not really happy with what's going on over there. It's not a league I know too well, but I think it's definitely a controversial decision to end a league when it's not entirely finished and to cement those results. I believe there are teams with games in hand who would have been promoted or would have been relegated who have been impacted by the decisions. How fair is that? Do you think it's fair? Comment down below on what you think they should have done, or whether you think they've done the right thing. As for the Premier League, if it's to end, is it going to be null and voided? Are Liverpool denied that Premier League title, or do Liverpool get that Premier League title, which will always have an asterisk on it that they never finished the season? Realistically, they're not getting caught. That's not one of the issues, but the issues are the teams at the bottom fighting for survival. Premier League is worth hundreds of millions of pounds to these teams that will have to change their entire operating structure depending on whether they stay in the Premier League or go to the Championship. Look at Burnley, for example. They're a prime example of this. Burnley in the Championship, shirt sponsor, Oak Furnitureland. Burnley in the Premier League, shirt sponsor, Chinese betting company, or a Japanese betting company. When they were bouncing up and down, their shirt sponsor was changing, and the financial implications of that are huge. Oak Furnitureland, they're just down the road. It's a local sponsorship. They're not going to be paying the multi-millions of pounds that the Chinese betting companies are going to be paid so that their name is broadcast week in, week out on live TV. It's a huge difference, not just on the fees that you get paid for competing in the league, but sponsorships as well. Another key area of sponsorship discussion is Manchester United. They are looking at a new main shirt sponsor to replace the hideous Chevrolet logo that's been on their shirts for quite a while now. That was a huge deal with Chevrolet, but now they're looking for a new deal, and our team, our companies, our businesses are going to be as interested in a team that's in the Champions League or in the Europa League. TV viewership figures are astronomically bigger on the Champions League than the Europa League, and the status that comes with it, again, makes such an impact. So Manchester United, they're a team who could have qualified for Champions League football. We don't know whether they would have, or if they will, because things haven't been decided yet. So teams need to know exactly what's going on. As soon as we do know for definite, I'll definitely be here to bring you the information and some debate on exactly what's going on. We've got another example from the Premier League. We've got Todd Cantwell of Norwich. He was on TalkSport earlier today. He would rather see the Premier League finished because he would rather go down fighting, do it the right way. He thinks they've got enough about them to get the points on the board and stay up. But he doesn't just want to be relegated just with games left to play, and he doesn't really want the season to be null and void because it doesn't account for the work that a lot of players have done. Elsewhere in sport, we've got baseball returning. Not to the US, like I covered earlier, but baseball has returned in Taiwan. They are playing in front of empty stadiums. Well, I say empty stadiums, they're not entirely empty, as some of the stadiums have been filled with cardboard cutouts of fans and mannequins, and there's even a robot band in one of the stadiums to provide some atmosphere. I'm not 100% sure what I make of this. I don't think we're going to be bringing the Premier League back and filling the Stretford End upper tier with some robots playing the drums and providing a bit of atmosphere. I don't quite think that's going to translate across well, but more power to them. What do you think about sports coming back in the uncertain time? Is it just one risk too much? Because ultimately, as much as you can see an empty stadium, there are still 22 players on the pitch. There's still 7 players on each bench. When we're talking football, of course, there's still the 5 or 6 members of the coaching staff. There's going to have to be security at these events to make sure people don't get in. There's going to have to be ground staff to work the grounds to make sure the pitches are in playable condition. And if we're going to one stadium to play all the remaining games, or 2 or 3 stadiums, those ground staff are going to be asked to work double, triple, quadruple time to keep the pitches in prime playing condition to play. Instead of just the remaining 10 games that would have been played at that stadium, they're going to have to play nearly 100 if we're going with 1 or 2 stadiums. There's a lot to be discussed logistics-wise when it comes down to replaying the remaining games, not just how to keep everybody safe. The dressing rooms at most grounds are not big enough to keep a 2-metre distance, and football is a contact sport. People aren't keeping a 2-metre distance. I think golf you could play. There's no reason to be closer than 2 metres to somebody in golf. Would it lack without a crowd? It probably would. There wouldn't be the slight murmurs when a shot goes wide or a muttering of applause when a shot goes in, but people go and play golf on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon just as a pastime. Realistically, throw a couple of scorers out there and you could keep the whole PGA going. I don't really see necessarily why the PGA have stopped. But that's a different story. Baseball, again, that's just 9 people in the outfield. No, 3 people in the outfield, 4 people in the infield, a catcher and a pitcher. They're not necessarily ever going to be very close to each other, but in the bullpens, they're all packed in quite tightly. You'd have to think, are all the athletes going to get tested before they are allowed to play? Is that a vital use of the testing equipment that could be better used elsewhere? There's a lot of other sports posing questions about what they're going to do. The NFL, there's another sport that's going to be big in the news as of next week, the NFL draft. I've got a X12Cast coming out tomorrow detailing my predictions for the first round of the NFL draft. I've done a mock draft, so you can take a listen to that, and you can express your views on who you would like your team to take as well, and what you think the future holds for your team in the NFL. If you are an NFL fan, if you're not, maybe we can help point you in the right direction of a team to support, or maybe just introduce you to the sport and find a new platform for you to enjoy. But the NFL are under threat of not being able to play a full season. There's talks in New York and California that they don't think they're going to allow people inside concert venues, sports stadiums until the end of the calendar year. So what does that hold? Is the NFL season going to be played entirely behind closed doors? There's talks of the NFL maybe playing a shorter season so that there are less games, less risks. But that's only then questions the integrity of the league. Maybe some teams would need every single team to agree on it in order to it have validity, much like we say with the Premier League. Is the Premier League title valid if you've only played 28 games as opposed to 36? I think in this case, you could probably vouch for it with Liverpool having such a large lead at the top of the table. What else have we got to talk about in sport? Well, Newcastle's takeover bid. How many times have we been here before? Newcastle getting taken over, Mike Ashley selling up. We hear about it almost every off-season, and it never happens, but it looks like it might. We've got some incredibly cash-rich Saudis looking to take over the club, which would potentially take them into financial realms that they have never ever seen, and we may have never ever seen. These Saudi family looking at investing in Newcastle are richer than the family that own Manchester City. So there's definitely a possibility for a turnaround in northeast football fortunes. Certainly, Newcastle fans have had it a lot better than the Sunderland fans recently. As we've seen on Sunderland Till I Die on the Netflix, it's a great documentary. I recommend it to anyone who wants to either laugh at Sunderland, see the inner workings of a football club, or just enjoy some football-related documentation during these lockdown times. But yes, could we see Newcastle, the club who have always been billed as this massive club, their huge fan base, one of the biggest fan bases in the country, one of the biggest stadiums in the country, St James's Park. It's a cathedral. It's right in the centre of the city. It's a place where people of Newcastle go and rejoice. They love their football and they are very passionate about it. And they've got a cracking atmosphere wherever they go. They've just never had a cracking team to boot. Realistically, we've not seen any success out of Newcastle since Shearer was still playing for them. So could they be the next team to try and break into the Champions League bracket? Obviously, they'll have financial fair play to contend with, but they've got a massive income coming through the stadium and such as well. One of the reasons why it's always been a bit baffling, they've never had any money to spend. But who knows? The Mike Ashley era could be over. There's been talks, there's things that have passed through Company's House about 150 million charge, which we believe is a loan from Ashley to Staveley to speed up the process. They think it's going to be a debt-free acquisition, and all signs point to Mike Ashley finally getting out the door at St James's Park, which I'm sure will, if they were allowed to, they would have parties in the streets up in the northeast. That's all for today. What are your views on football coming back? What would you like to see happen with the Premier League? Please, let's get the debate going down in the comments section. I want to hear from you guys. Who do you think deserves to get relegated or get promoted? Does anyone deserve to get relegated or promoted without a league being finished entirely? Let me know, guys. Stay safe as always. Thank you for listening. Good night.